morning, everyone, and welcome to the SB Connect Industry Chat. And today's presenters are Jolene Saldivar and Clarissa Rodriguez from the University of California, Riverside. And today they're going to speak to you live from the UCR Botanical Gardens. So let's welcome Jolene and Clarissa. And go ahead, ladies. The floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Botanic Garden here at UC Riverside. I'm Jolene Saldivar.
And I'm Clarissa Rodriguez.
And this morning, we're going to start you off with introductions into our research and what we do here at UCR.
Okay.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, I'm Jolene Saldivar. I'm a third-year PhD candidate here at UCR. I study plant pollinator interactions, and my career goal ultimately is to become a professor and lead a lab just like the one I'm in now, conducting lots of research on pollinators.
Hi, everybody. I'm Clarissa Rodriguez, and I study plant invasion dynamics. So I study species that move outside of their native distributions to see how they're impacting our environments. And my career goal is to be a professor at an undergraduate institution, but also work with land managers so we can solve these pressing issues on invasive species management. And so now let's talk a little bit about our roots and how we got to where we are today.
Thank you, Clarissa. So I come from a family of migrant farm workers. I have grandparents and parents from Mexico and Poland, and I'm a first generation college student. I was raised by a single mother. I have five brothers. So, this was a great challenge for me, particularly continuing education. So I want to tell you a little bit about my journey through education. So I actually, as I mentioned, I come from low-income families. So as a result, I wanted to go to college, but we just couldn't afford it. So I decided to enlist in the U.S. Air Force. And during my enlistment, I deployed all over the world. I was able to take classes online and on the weekends. And through those opportunities, I finished my first bachelor's degree in environmental science. And I just loved the area of research so much. Once I separated from the Air Force, I continued my education and I completed my second bachelor's degree in 2017 at Humboldt State University in Northern California. And after that, I participated in research opportunities in the summer of 2017. I studied plant pollinator interactions in Washington State. So I got to hike all over Mount Rainier National Park and really track the butterflies and what plants they're visiting. And then I also did an internship at Harvard Forest at Harvard University. And there I studied trees and how climate change is affecting those. And Clarissa, do you want to give us some background?
Thank you. So the reason I'm standing here today as a PhD candidate is thanks to my parents. So they were born in Zacatecas, Mexico, and they migrated over to Coachella Valley in the 1970s to work in the citrus industry. And so eventually they moved to LA, where my parents had 5 girls and were raising all of us. And this is really where my parents started to encourage me to follow my dreams, right? And so my path to my higher ed, it started all when I was in high school, actually. I didn't want to go too far away from my family, so I decided to go to college really locally. I went to school at Cal Poly Pomona. I lived at home, so I was still close with my family. And I had that family support, but there's where I found my love for plants. So after college, I went off and I got some internships, which got some great experience. And also I went to Oregon, which I had this awesome job that I got to camp out 5 days out of the week, just looking for plants in the middle of nowhere. And it was absolutely great. And that's how I ended up here at UCR. Now we're going to show you a video about, to give you more idea of the diversity at the Botanic Garden that we have here. So please enjoy that video.
tell you a little bit about why I chose my field of study. And so I study plant pollinators again. I study them here in Riverside County and throughout the Inland Empire. You may see a photo on the left of some yellow flowers and some warehouses in the distance. And that is one of my major concerns is increased development, warehouses, housing, and things of the such. And, you know, these are really damaging our ecosystems. They're eliminating them or, you know, putting our plant communities and our pollinators at stress. And we see more frequent fires as well. And also we see a lot of weeds coming in. So all of these are among the greatest stressors for plants and pollinators. And, you know, we see our monarch population is declining. So I'm really trying to get at what other plants are the pollinators visiting? Are we threatening those plants, or are the pollinators able to adapt and utilize other plants for food and also to lay their eggs on for the next generation? So that's really my focus here in the Inland Empire. Clarissa?
Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, I study plant invasion dynamics. So what that means is that I study what drives invasive plant establishment and spread so that we can improve invasive plant management and restoration. And so one of the reasons why I'm so interested in invasive species is that annually we spend about $26.8 billion on trying to manage these species. Now that's a lot of money. And secondly is that invasive species are recognized as the second leading cause of biodiversity loss. And so that's really important. We're losing a bunch of species because of these invasive species. So my research focuses on understanding how can we mitigate this? How can we help our native populations by getting rid of these invasive species and stopping the spread?
Great, thank you. So now we're going to talk about some of the many career opportunities in plant biology. We will start off with just an overall view of some of them. So you can do anything from agriculture. UCR is known for its citrus crops here, and you know, you could study the diseases that threaten this agriculture here. So we'll zoom into the ecology field. We have our own slide for that. You may be seeing it. Thank you. So, you know, as I mentioned, you know, ecologists can study plant pollinator interactions or just any type of interactions between life. And this just opens up many opportunities to restore habitats, to, you know, really find out what's threatening these habitats and these interactions. And you'll see the typical salary range at the bottom of the slide. Clarissa, do you want to tell us about some more opportunities?
Yeah, awesome. So a degree in plant biology can be very diverse. So we study ecology, but there are some other options as well. So you can be a plant pathologist, and basically this means that you study what is causing the diseases in these plants. And so that's really important, because if you don't realize it, we use plants for our medicine, for our clothes, for our food. So it's really important to understand what is causing these diseases. And so there you can see on the slide, there's a picture of the different types of diseases that you can find in plants. And at the bottom of the screen, you can see the typical salary range. So people in this profession get paid pretty well. Now let's move on to plant geneticists. And so for plant geneticists, we've actually had geneticists for the whole civilization of humans for a long time, because we have been playing around with corn throughout our lives. And so there you see a picture of how diverse corn can be, right? So plant geneticists can do a variety of things. They can create genetically modified organisms to increase our crop yields. They can also tweak things so that we can get more food with less pests. And there's really, you could also create new varieties of plants. Here at UCR, we create some clementine type mixes and some new fruit altogether, which is really exciting. Jolie?
Great, thank you. So now we're going to move on to another area of the Botanic Garden. So please enjoy this video while we relocate. We'll see you shortly.
So this is interesting. So plants tend to adapt to where they are, right? They adapt to their environment. So if you look at this, here you see some leaves and you see some spines. And if you look at this cactus here, this is a cactus that evolved later. So over time, we tend to think of cacti that grow in hot areas, right? So these plants wanted to stop losing so much water and reserve what they have. So actually, these spines that we recognize on cactus are actually modified leaves. So these are actually the leaves, and the stems, the part that if you eat cactus or nopales, you know that this green part is actually the stem that you're eating. So we can see this is an example of a plant adapting to their environment. And now, if we look over a little bit to my right, these are some agaves. And agaves, if you can see in the back, there's this big stalk coming up, this flower stalk. So just a fun fact, the reason why they're so tall is because they used to be pollinated by giant ground sloths. And so that's one of the remnant things about how plants adapt to survive in this world.
Yes, and another fun fact is in Southern California, we know Joshua trees, right? So a lot of plants in the Joshua tree area, they flower at night to really ensure that they don't lose a lot of water and a lot of energy during the hot daytimes. So they have developed a really intricate relationship with moths that typically we know come out at night. And so they are the only insects that can pollinate these plants. So again, we see these intricate interactions, and they're very susceptible to, climate change, fires, pollution, and habitat destruction. So that's really what drives our research here.
So now we're just going to start walking towards another location. And as we walk along, I'll give you all some little plant facts. And so, well, first you can see here the diversity of cacti. There's so many different types, and they all have different flowers. And so we have barrel cactus, we have stalk cactus, we have so many different types. And here living in Riverside, we are actually a borderline desert type community. So we're not technically a desert, but because we get about 10 inches of rain a year, we have a lot of desert species growing in Riverside. And one cool plant that I want to show you all is this plant right here. So we call this the jumping cholla. And the reason we call it a jumping cholla is because you can be walking and not realize that there's a cholla stuck to you, because if you see, there's all these like stalks. So this piece can break off and it can clone like that. And so we call them jumping chollas because they spread out like crazy, because they just get stuck to your clothes and you don't even realize it. But let's keep going. So now we are what we call the palm oasis. And so if you look at this palm tree, this doesn't look like the ones that you see in your neighborhood or at the park, right? And the reason why is because in cities, we trim these down. We cut off all of these. But if you weren't to manicure your palm trees, this is what it would look like. And the reason why we trim them is not just so that they look prettier. It's because in this, we have, in the natural habitats, birds and rodents, they find refuge in there. So that's their home. So if we weren't to cut that off, then in our cities, we'd have a lot of like rodents living there. And another fun fact is that these palm trees, the way that they reproduce is with fire. And so this is a really good fire starter. So if this catches on fire, you can imagine you don't want that in a city, an easy fire hazard. But now we're gonna move into our Q&A portion. So I will hand it over to Jolene. If anybody has a question for us about graduate school, about plants, anything, please feel free.
Participants, you can unmute yourself if you have a question for our presenters.
Hi, one of my students has a question. Go ahead, Mr. Okay.
Oh.
Go ahead. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to step up.
Oh, how long would you have to go to college and study to be a plantologist to Dudley University to study plants?
That's a great question. So the programs range from 4 years and up. Because I have 2 bachelor's degrees, that's a total of 8 years. And then now my PhD, my doctoral degree that I'm working on, that's another 5 years. Some folks finish it later, some folks finish it earlier. It just depends on your research. If it's very complicated and you have to rely on getting out to very far off places that require a lot of travel. Sometimes the weather can be bad and really impact you getting out to your research site. So it really depends. But if you're interested in a bachelor's degree, that would be a 4-year program. Thank you.
Okay, we have another question. Go ahead.
How long does it take for the palm trees to grow like that without trimming?
That's a great question, and I'm actually not sure.
I'll say years.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you have an idea?
Maybe about 10 plus years. They grow pretty quickly when they're young, and then they slow down as they get older. I know we always trim ours, so I couldn't tell you.
Do you guys get a 401k after you retire from your job?
It depends on like where you what job you get. So right now Jolene and I are still in school. Technically we're PhD candidates, so unfortunately we don't get a 401k when we graduate. That would be great, but no. So after we get our PhDs, then we go into our actual profession. So I want to go into teaching, and yeah, so it just depends on what you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, teaching comes with a lot of benefits. So yeah, you'll definitely have a 401k once you start teaching. And every university pays differently. So the benefits could vary. That's a great question. It's great that you're already thinking that, because I didn't think it until much later in my life.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, another question here. Go ahead.
How big is the whole garden?
It's 40 acres, so it's pretty big, and it's actually free. So you all can come and visit. It's free admission, and there's tours as well, and you can even volunteer.
Yes, and if we had the time and the possibility to take you to see all the different gardens, you would really enjoy it. You can come here and hike. There's a lot of wildlife. We see bobcats sometimes. We saw some bobcat babies. It's a great place to just see wildlife in addition to plants.
Okay, another question here. Go ahead.
Am I allowed to just walk into the college to just look at the gardens, or I would have to sign up for like tours and stuff?
That's a great question. Anyone can walk in. Definitely check the Botanic Garden website. The hours may change due to weather, maybe due to COVID restrictions, but anyone could come and walk on in. It's free. You can give a donation if you'd like, but it's open to the public. No reservations required right now. And there's a roadrunner.
Oh, that's cool. So another question one of my students has is, do you have different names for different gardens within your botanical garden?
Oh yeah, so the Botanic Garden, so there's a few botanic gardens. Like I used to work at the Claremont Botanic Garden, and they're known as the largest California native botanic garden. But here at UCR, they really try to show you the diversity around the world. So there's a part that shows you what plants in Australia look like, what plants in China look like, what plants in our deserts look like, what plants in Mexico look like. So yeah, every single area in we have different parts of the Botanic Garden, and there are like guided pamphlets. So when you come, you won't be overwhelmed. Like it takes you on a tour that you can do. Great question.
another question here, go ahead.
Where's your favorite part of the garden?
Where's our favorite place in the garden?
Yeah.
I study drylands and deserts, so I love the cactus garden. But yeah, that's my favorite.
That's a great question. So, you remember where we started off? We were actually in the butterfly garden. And as we were talking, there was butterflies flying around. And because I study butterflies, that's my favorite part of the garden. But also, I like the redwood forest part. We have giant redwoods here, coast redwoods. So I did my second bachelor's degree, as you may remember, at Humboldt State. And so that is redwood country, and those are the tallest trees in the world, and they live 2,000 years or so. So we have some youngsters here, but they're still big. So that's my other favorite part.
Okay, another question for you, ladies.
Do you guys have Joshua trees?
Joshua trees in the I'm not sure.
I can't say I've ever seen any. On the website there is an interactive map, and it'll take you through all the different gardens and the key plants of those gardens. So, if you have some free time, definitely check out the UCR Botanic Garden website.
Okay, as a class, we're gonna visit your botanical garden website, and we just wanted to tell you thank you for taking the time to share your information with my students, and we all say thank you.
Thank you.
You all are very welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning and for the great questions.
Thank you. And with this, we will end the virtual tour. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.